Hey up! Welcome back to the Yorkshire Bike Mechanics YouTube channel. My name's Dave K. I hope you're having a good week and everybody's staying safe and well. Today, by popular demand, we've got how to take off a stuck pedal from a crank arm. Yep, we have. This happens loads. We get loads of these. And some of them come off pretty easy and some of them are a complete nightmare and need remedial work to get the new pedal on. So this is a Boardman. It's a Boardman road bike, and the pedal is stuck. It will not come off. I've not tried too hard because I thought it's about time we make this video. Everybody's wanted it, and so let's crack on. So let's get stuck in. I love this sort of stuff. It's ace. A good challenge. So what I've done, this is a Boardman, by the way, as you can probably see. It's a carbon. What I've done is, just for the purpose of the video, I've taken the chain rings, I've taken the crankset off and put the crankset back and fastened it in place. Purely and simply because at this stage, this is the best way to get your pedals off with the crankset in the bike. Okay? I've got it in the stand, but it doesn't have to be in a stand. You can do it without, and I'll show you in a second or two. But the first thing that we need to do is we need some kind of tools to be able to get this off. Now, depending on how seized this pedal is, would depend on what sort of tools that you're going to need. But in any event, you're going to need a pedal spanner, particularly if it's got a 15mm notch, as you can see there. I don't know whether you can see it. Just try and focus that into there. Can you see that 15mm notch on the end of the pedal? That's basically for a pedal spanner. And this is the sort of pedal spanner that is the best to use for removing pedals with a 15mm notch. It's got plenty of leverage. It's a long one. It wasn't cheap, but we use them a lot, and so it's worth investing in something really, really good. The other type of pedal that you might see is one that doesn't have this 15mm notch. It just has an Allen key on the other side. It could be 6mm, it could be 8mm or 10mm even. But the same thing applies. You need a decent socket set, a decent one, with some decent 8mm sockets, Allen key sockets. And the same sort of procedure applies really. So the first thing that we need to do is, let's get the bike on the ground and I'll show you the best way to start. So the first thing that we're going to need to do is, we're going to need to apply some mild to moderate heat, not to discolour this crank arm, around this area here. And we can do it by a heat gun. Sometimes we use this. It's the biggest pile of rubbish we've ever bought, to be honest. It doesn't really give out much heat, but it might be enough to be able to expand this around here, this crank arm on the end. So let's apply some heat. We don't need to get it too warm, just enough. Just enough to expand this metal. We do have a blowtorch as well, which is MAP gas, which gives out tons and tons of heat, but we're guaranteed to discolour the crank arm if we use it, but it doesn't have to get some heat out. So it might be that it just needs a small amount of heat to be able to you know, get this pedal out, and that's the only thing that it might need. So rather than going drastic and trying to rag it out, it's worth trying to apply a little bit of heat first. So I'll heat this up and then I'll come back. Right, so we've heated this up. I've been here 6 days. I'm only kidding. Feels like it with that thing. So I've heated it up. It's actually too hot to touch. I couldn't actually touch that with my hands. So you really don't want to get it any hotter than that. It's just enough to expand that metal around. So the next thing that we need is, let me move my camera further back. We need a block of wood. Okay, now this block needs to be, it doesn't have to be this thickness or anything. It just needs to be obviously fairly strong and sturdy. But the idea is we actually put this behind the pedal at the bottom there, okay? Can you see that? I'll just move my camera down a bit more. Right, okay, so you can see that this particular block of wood is supporting the end of the pedal. But it's supporting it so I can actually get the pedal spanner in there as well, okay? So if you can see, being careful not to touch the pedal, you can see there. So what we've got in effect is I could pull this pedal back now and it's not going to go anywhere because it's actually stood on top of the block. Now this is the best way of trying to get pedals out of your bike. So what you need to do is you need to get your pedal spanner in such a position that you're actually applying downward force straight down. I'll move my camera, there we are. So you can see that I've got the pedal spanner 90 degrees from the block, and the block is just supporting there, so I can actually lever this pedal spanner down. Now I don't want to leave it too long before I start to put some pressure on, because this will cool down too much. So let's try and apply a little bit of force. They always backwards to undo, okay? Forwards to tighten up and backwards to undo. Don't get that confused. So let's apply some downward pressure. I'm almost hoping that this ain't going to come off, because I want to show you what the next step is if it won't come off. Now, this is quite a big pedal spanner and I'm applying lots of pressure. As you can see, the bike's moving. Okay, I could apply a bit. Let's try a bit more pressure, because I'm not giving all my force. Now that is solid. Look at that. That's not coming off, which is great. Not for you guys, but it is for video. Okay, so if that's not coming out now and I'm applying all that pressure, then the chances are this pedal, when it does come out, and it will come out, we'll get it out, it will come out, but it'll pull all the threads out the crank arm with it, okay? I'll show you what I mean. I'll get a pedal that's already damaged. You can see all the metal in the end of the pedal where the threads are. So what this pedal has done, when we've taken it out, it's pulled all the metal, all the threads in the crank arm. It's pulled them all with it. So what we've had to do in this particular case, we've had to helicoil it. Okay, so what we need to do now, we need to apply some more heat. Okay, so let's get it a little bit hotter and see if that does the trick. What we can also do is we can also apply what we call plus gas, which is like a penetrating fluid. If you do that over a space of a few days, that can sometimes help. So let's apply some more heat. I'll come back in a bit. So I have got this really hot now, okay? It's as much, I won't want to get it much hotter than that, because it'll start to discolour the finish on it, the anodizing. So let's see what this does. There we are, that's brought it off. Now with a bit of luck, the threads will be fine. Oh, as tight as that. Now we might find that as it cools down it gets tighter, in which case we're going to need to reheat it up a little bit. Careful not to burn your hands. Sometimes the pedal can get hot as well. Let's put a little bit of plus gas on there, see if that helps. You can see the steam coming off. how hot it is. We wouldn't get it much hotter than that because, like I say, we'll take the paint off the crank arm and then the crank arm will be gone. Now I think we should put a little bit more heat back in that now, just to try and expand it more, because if we're going to have any chance of getting this out without pulling the threads out, then heat is going to be our friend. So let's get some more heat on it. I'll come back in a second. I wish this was smell television. Smells ace. Right, so I'll put more heat in it just to try and help. Okay, but not too much heat, because obviously we don't want to damage his crank arm. Now I'm applying quite a lot of force there to actually undo that smell. I don't know whether we love that sort of smell. A bit weird really, isn't it? Anyway, look at that, it's coming out nice and clean. But if we hadn't applied that heat, I reckon we'd have probably pulled the thread out with the pedal. I don't know whether you can see that, but it's actually come out pretty clean, to be honest, compared to the one I showed you earlier on. Let me try and focus that in. You see that? It looks pretty clean. Steaming. So let's have a look at his crank arm as well. Careful not to burn his fingers. Okay, so we've still got his crank arm intact. The paint is not discoloured, which is good because that means we've not applied too much heat. The threads are still look okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get a tap and I'm just going to clean those threads out with a 9/16 tap, just to make sure that the new pedal goes in okay. But I think that's a good job, well done. So let's say the worst has come to the worst and you've ended up getting your pedal out, but it's pulled the threads out of the crank arm as well. Well, you might think it's a disaster, and in some cases it is, but all's not lost, because what we can do is, with this pedal that the crank arm's been damaged from this pedal that we're in there, we can put a new thread in there and we can helicoil. It's called helicoiling. Now this is something that you might be able to do yourself if you've got the equipment. If not, then your bike shop will be able to do it for you. So all's not lost. You've got your pedal out, but it's pulled all the thread out with it. So here's how to put a new thread in there, and we'll show you how to do it, or how it's done. So we're going to use a vise for this. So if you've not got a vise at home and you've not got some soft jaws like we have, then you can do it while this is in your bike. Obviously, for the ease of the video, it's easier for us to put it in a vise, but you can do it while it's in your bike. So it needs to be clamped really strong, tight there, in your vise, or if it's in your bike, you need to somehow secure your crankset so it's not moving. Okay, so how we go about doing this, we have two kind of taps. So we've got a left and a right tap. Okay, and here, if I can focus in there, okay, and you can see on the first section of the tap is like a cut-in system. So what this does is this cuts the existing hole out of the crank arm to the right size to be able to put another thread in at the end. One's for a right pedal and one's for a left pedal. It's important you use the right one. This is a left-hand crank arm, so we're going to need the left-hand tap. So that goes in there. So, and what we need to do is, we've got two helicoils here as well, which one for a right and one for a left. The gold one is for the right hand pedal and the left hand one is for the left hand pedal. And what this does is widen this hole out with this tap and rethread it. Then we screw this helicoil system into there, and then the new pedal goes into the helicoil system in the pedal. And you can see that if I screw that on there, it starts to screw in. Then that sits in as pedal, and then the pedal screws in as helicoil. Okay, it's a fairly straightforward process, but you need equipment to do it, and it's not cheap to do. It's not cheap to buy, rather. Okay, so that's the helicoil that we need. We've got a left hand tap, which we're going to open up that hole, and we'll do that now. So we'll use a bit of oil or cutting fluid just to help ream this hole out to the right size. Okay, and we just start, and don't forget it's a left hand thread, so we need to go left hand, and what we basically do is we're just reaming that out. I don't know whether you can see, okay, but what will do, that tap will elongate the hole, it'll make it bigger, big enough to actually form a new thread when it gets down to that point. And then we can install the helicoil in it as well. So I'll cut it down to that point and then I'll come back. Right, okay, so I've got down to that point now, as you can see, and the thread will just start to cut another thread into this crank arm. It's important that we use plenty of oil or cutting fluid just to ease that through, and it's important that we're going straight as well. So what will happen now, these new threads will start to be cut in the crank arm. Just go steady away, backwards and forwards, and they'll start to cut. You can see that swarf coming off there. Okay, so you go backwards and then forwards, and eventually it will cut all the threads needed to install as helicoil. So we're just coming back out now. We've got all the threads in there, nice and clean. Take a photograph for you so you can see a bit of a better view. Just give them out with, just clean them out with a bit of isopropyl alcohol or brake cleaner, whatever you want to use. Just give them a clean. Okay. Now what we can do now is we can put us helicoil in there. Okay, so that'll screw straight down in there, and you can see it going in. Once we've got this screwed all the way in, as far as we go, I won't do it all the way because I don't want to. This crank arm's it's scrap anyway, so I don't want to waste a helicoil because they're not cheap. But then obviously once that's in there, put some Loctite in there, some strong adhesive Loctite. But once this starts to go in, it'll lock it in place anyway. Okay, so you can see that'll go in there now, and we continue to tighten that up. It'll take the helicoil in with it. It'll get so far, then it'll stop. And then what we need to do is just trim the other side off. And that's basically it. That's how we get a new thread on a damaged crankset. As you can see there, just using a helicoil, an oversized tap, and that's basically it. It's the same procedure for the right or the left, but obviously for the right one we'll use a gold one and a right hand tap. But yeah, hope you enjoyed that. I'll see you later. Toodle pip.